Welcome to Small Talk, where each week we sit down to discuss the sermon-based small group questions at Wallula Christian Church.
Hello and welcome back to Wallula's weekly podcast, Small Talk. My name is Zach Bolin. I'm joined by Craig Archer and Lance Kaufman. We are going to be talking about the sermon a few days ago. That would be my sermon, and I got to do that. That was really fun. It was entitled Why I Love the Church. So today we'll be looking at some of those small group questions about loving the church and different ways, not different ways, but different parts of the church that when we think of that. But like always, we have a fun question we're going to start with that I would like to amend a little bit. It was brought to my attention during staff meeting that maybe my question wasn't exactly, didn't come across the way I had hoped it would. The question is, when you're talking, we are talking about loving the church, so what's something that people would be surprised to learn that you don't love? And the question is, what's just something you don't love? Just kind of fun, like you don't, whatever. But because I had the...
Black licorice.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That would be a great answer.
Yeah.
But because I put, hey, we're talking about loving the church, what's something you don't love? I found out that it kind of makes it seem like what's something in the church you don't love. And oops, that's not at all what I meant.
You did not intend for small groups to come together this week.
Yes.
Just to harp
leading
on
into loving the church. Let's talk about what we hate about it. That was not the purpose of my of that. I put that in there just because I was like, hey, I'm going to have a question that's about kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, but not about the church. So if you've already had your small group and you've been bashing the church, my apologies. That's not what it's for. That's what the question said. So
have the list of things that Lance says and does if you've already, make you mad. Keep them to yourself.
Yeah. If you already have it written and you're getting ready to have small group, throw that away and stick with licorice.
Why doesn't Craig ever sing this song?
Yeah.
He never does that.
Yeah.
Just send the list.
Yeah. So, luckily, hopefully, you're watching this podcast, and we can clarify it for you from the author's source. That I meant, what is just something that someone would be surprised to learn that you don't love, and why all the hate for that thing? Craig, what do you got?
All right. I'm actually gonna say two different things.
Okay.
And
Hater's gonna hate.
Remember, I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you know these.
Okay.
Or not. And I feel like I'm overachieving because you usually have a couple
I have
different answers.
I have three, but I think I'm only going to stick with one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's two things. The first one, I don't love the sound of people eating.
Okay.
It just...
As an audiophile, it's abrasive.
It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think... This is a good one for me. Do you think some people eat louder than other people?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have names?
I mean, I could list some names. It's like it really gets at me sometimes.
Huh.
Really?
And I told Haley this the other day. I kind of just had this flashback to growing up, and when I would be eating breakfast. Eating cereal in the morning, and my brother's sitting just on the corner of the table or across from each other. It wasn't that he was obnoxiously eating his cereal or anything,
right?
But just the sound of the crunchy cereal, I didn't like that. So I would put the cereal box in between us and kind of block the sound because I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
And it's followed me through. Into adulthood.
Do your kids do that? I mean, do you?
No.
Oh, okay.
They're fine.
All right.
My daughter Lacey complains about Clayton eating loud all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She complains about me eating loud too. Sherry, the other night I was eating popcorn next to Sherry, and Sherry's like, "Man, you are just chomping that popcorn."
A notoriously loud food.
Right.
Yeah.
It was popcorn.
Yeah.
And this is my deal because Lacey says this about everybody but Clayton and myself. She'll complain, and I'm like, well, they're peanuts or chips or whatever. And what?
And that's the thing. I don't.
What is a person supposed to do?
Yeah, right. How do you choose this quietly?
Right.
I understand that I don't like it, but chips are chips, and I can't do anything about someone could be so careful about how they eat a chip, and it's still going to make the sound that I don't like.
Right.
Yeah.
So
See, I'm not certain that some people eat louder than others. I'm not sure if we can do a scientific
I
study.
think smacking, I definitely know, like, it's just,
there's
that
that.
I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I can see your food. Like, that's,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know what I mean? Like, come on.
like, I guess if you're maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you say you had a few, though?
Yeah.
I had another one. Another thing that I don't love is when people treat things that are opinions as if they are facts. And then they like get really heated about it.
Well, I'm glad you work at a church in America. You won't come across that at all in any type of religious setting. Strong
Right.
opinions. But was there something specific, like in an area,
I mean,
or
examples
just in anything?
like I just remember people talking about, say, like movies,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they'll get really passionate about
Right.
like, oh, you don't like that, and it's like, yeah, it's a movie,
Right.
Not everyone has to like what you like,
Right.
and they approach it as if it's like
Sure.
absolute truth.
I do.
And I'm just kind of like, just save your breath.
I was in college. Someone's like, I didn't like Dumb and Dumber. I'm like, that is hilarious. What are you talking about? It's like my favorite movie in high school. And
Yeah.
they're like, I just thought it was so stupid. I'm like, yeah, but that's what makes it. And I was really like indignant. I was just so stupid. Like, like, why am I?
Like,
It's
I
fine.
used to.
It's fine.
I like it now. I used to not really like pineapple, and,
Uh-huh.
and I would tell people that, and they're like, "What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?" I'm like,
who
I don't know.
Who cares?
I didn't choose
Yeah.
my taste
Right,
buds.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, get off my back.
I'll do that with the students. They'll get into like debates about something, and
Yeah.
I was like, let's all be clear on here on what doesn't matter right now,
Yeah.
which is what you're talking about. Your whole pineapple talk or movie, like.
Right.
Who cares about, like, just to kind of humble them a little bit.
Right.
Like, you need to focus your efforts on something else. Because people get worked up about things.
Yeah.
That's good. What about you, Lance?
Oh man.
What don't you like?
Yeah. So I felt like the hard part of this question to me, for me, was the whole surprised. You'd be surprised to know. I feel like I've spilled my guts enough.
Yeah.
And for the most of our audience here, that they, I've told stories about goat's milk, and I'm not crazy about milk, and beets. I've got a jar of beets somebody gave me on my shelf because I said I don't, I eat about anything, but probably too loud for Craig, but except for beets. I don't like beets.
Beets aren't crunchy, really.
Yeah, no, I suppose you could quiet
But he's
those
pretty
down.
good. Have you heard his
And
popcorn?
milk. Yeah, yeah. I'm a smacker, evidently. So I don't know. So yeah, I don't feel like that was the part that was getting me. Can I surprise anybody with something? And I don't think I can. You mentioned the title of your message, and I don't think any of us do this, but this is one of the things with preachers when they will they'll share the title of their message. They'll start and say the title of my message is, and that's what it drives me crazy. I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of that. I don't think any of us do that.
I think I kind of have a little bit. Like, I'll reference the sermon as I'm preaching the sermon. I think I did it even first service. I was like, let's start the sermon or something. And then I thought, why did I say that? Like,
You didn't, but he's.
I didn't do the title.
No,
The
your
title.
transition was rough at 9:00. It was
yes,
on my envelope
yeah,
that
yeah,
I finally
yeah.
found.
I
in
thought
staff
that
meeting.
too.
Yeah,
Like,
you
didn't
just
and it
said,
didn't do
"Let's
that.
start."
Yes,
I'm like, I thought as I wrote it down, and I thought, haven't
that was
we started?
That
the
was
sermon?
and I was like, that was
going
unnecessary
on?
after my
Yeah.
intro. And I was
no,
like,
that
why
was
did
fine,
I?
though. No big deal.
I know I didn't do it during seconds.
But you
So it's
did,
a little.
yeah.
But some guys, some people,
Yes.
Yeah.
every time they preach, the title of my message is, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
That's why we make these graphics.
is it? Yeah, is
Yeah.
it really that?
Put it on the
important?
screen.
The title
Uh-huh.
is it that important? And if it is, shouldn't I get it
Yeah.
from the context
Yeah.
of your message? You know, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know if I hate that.
Right.
That might be too strong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you chose the word
hate.
hate in this question. Strong.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I didn't. Oh, I did. I did say hate. Yeah, the second part. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a surprise learn you don't love, and then why all the hate for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking like, if it's licorice or whatever.
Right.
Some
Yeah.
people are like, nobody knows this, but
Yeah, I can't. I'm not sure I have
That's
anything
okay.
else.
yeah, when I wrote it, I wasn't like, oh, I got a lot of
Long
answers
lines,
here.
Speeding tickets.
Zach
Yeah.
wrote this
There's
question
lots
just
of
because he
stuff
had
I
this
don't like.
list he
It's
needs
time
to
to
get
air
out.
some grievances.
Yeah.
No, I had, because I was trying to think of like surprised. I really don't like, so I had a few, like I had peas. I don't like peas. I think I may have mentioned before, but that's not surprising. But of all, I can muscle down almost anything, and like peas, it's just a scoop of, I've had some bad experiences as a kid, and
Yeah.
just my parents making me, and I just,
Sure.
I mean, not to get graphic here, but just,
You don't like any
Throwing
kind of
up.
peas?
if the peas are in like stew, no problem. Like if it's mashed, but like when I see people on TV, because that's usually when I see it, like and they're scooping peas and just eating a spoonful, it's the craziest thing to me. I'm like, how on earth does someone just eat plain, straight peas, nothing? I'm like,
What about like snap peas?
those are okay.
peas in
Like
the pod thing?
I'm pretty
You're
flexible on almost anywhere. Like any
Yeah.
deviation,
You
and
like those?
that's fine. No, but I can do it. But like
those?
just a straight thing anyway.
Not gonna do it.
The main one I thought was dancing. I don't hate to watch competitions. I don't mind it when it's happening, but you ask me to do it, and I will shut that down as fast as I can. I do not want to dance. I don't, and it's so funny because like I don't mind embarrassing myself. I'll tell you whatever story you want to know. I'll participate in any skit or whatever to make myself look foolish. But I can't dance, and I don't. If it's a choreographed dance like the electric slide, no problem. But if it's just like, hey, just come on out on the dance at a wedding, and I was like, it's time to go. I need to go get a drink.
Slow dancing.
If there's choreo, like, hey, hands, whatever, and then that's fine. But if it's just like the music's going, come on out, and then people are just freestyle dancing, I am lost. I can't. And even though you see people out there being like, I think I could probably do better than that, and I'm still like, and I don't have the confidence to just go dance poorly just for. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if this qualifies as surprising. like if we just took your Polaroid and we just walked down the street and asked people, does this guy like to dance?
Right. I mean,
what's the answer going to be?
It may be because I'm pretty fearless when it comes to like doing dumb stuff or saying dumb stuff or participating. And so,
Sure.
But if it's like, hey, how about get in front of people? No problem. Speaking, no problem. Do whatever. Wearing something goofy, no problem.
Eating worms all day.
Yeah. So here's, yeah, exactly. Eating worms. I don't think I've ever told that story. And that wasn't even that embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed by that. That's another story. But one time I was at a youth conference at Ozark where I went to college, and they needed some game for youth pastors. And so the guys organizing it were like, hey, Zach, do you want to, behind the scenes, they were like, hey, we need like 8 youth pastors up on stage. Would you mind being the one? I was like, sure, no problem. And then they get up there and they're like, all right, we're going to have a dance off. We're going to play some music. And the youth pastors there's like 1,000 middle schoolers like watching this. And they're all going to dance on stage to whatever type of music is. And the worst dancer will be kicked off. Right. And I was like, I could not have picked a worse situation to be in. And so we start dancing, and it was like Western. Sure. Yeah. So I do that, and I make it to the next round, and then it was like hip hop, and I was like, this does not, I can't imagine this going well. And sure enough, they were like, what about this one? And then I was off, and I was thankfully, they saw my lack of skill and said, we're done. And so they kicked me off, and it was rough.
This is totally for free, and I don't even know why I'm thinking about this, but you said Western, and at this marriage retreat conference thing we go to, one of the nights they take us to dinner, and so the whole group is at dinner, and they took us to this place, and it was the oddest place. It was nice, but it was just the weirdest place I've been in a very long time, because it was this Western steakhouse restaurant. I mean, they had a bowl in the parking lot. Just here's the bowl. You can take your picture with the bowl.
Oh, a bowl.
A bowl.
I thought you said a bowl.
No,
like
a bowl.
Of what?
A bowl.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
A real one?
Horns. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In a fence, and and so
Wow.
here it is. It's like Dude Ranch restaurant.
Yeah.
Like serious kind of themed Western restaurant, but it's on a golf course.
Oh,
Okay.
Like those classic westerns.
Yeah. So we're eating, and out the picture window next to us, you can see the 18th hole or whatever.
Yeah.
The golf course. It's at this resort on this golf course. So the setting's a little weird. You got your barnyard animals outside, and then it's on the golf course, and then the waiters are dressed up like cowboys,
Okay.
kind of thing, and so very, very themed restaurant. And so we're kind of wrapping up with dinner, and our hosts are like, "So, are you going to go down the slide?"
Yeah. Speaking of Western.
Yeah. So I'm just what?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to. I can answer. I can finish the story for you.
There's a slipper slide in the restaurant. There's a slide in the restaurant, and they're like, everybody goes down it, and there's a slide, and so
It's like adult peer pressure right there.
Yeah.
So we went over and went down the slide.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, no
The
way.
whole group.
I thought for
all of us
sure
at the
you weren't
table.
going to do it.
No, yeah, we went down the slide, and
Was there anything remarkable about it?
just that it's in this Western
Yeah.
steakhouse with a slide. It was like the Christmas Story movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Santa Claus, and I could never figure out, why is Santa Claus on a slide?
Yeah.
What is that about exactly? Other than you want a scene where he's shoving the kid down the slide, and that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
There's just this slide in the middle of the Western restaurant. Just the oddest thing. So
Man.
there you go.
That is weird. I
Nice.
agree with you. Speaking of Western,
I
you just wasted it, man. You
Yeah.
could have used that for
Well, I
a
can say
sermon
I
illustration.
hated that slide. So
Yeah.
there, I couldn't say that. I don't know.
I hated it. All right, you can say that then. That follows.
Sure. Worst slide ever.
Yeah. And people were surprised about it. So,
People were surprised. Yeah.
all right. Well, moving on, we're going to be going through some of the small group questions today, specifically number 3 and 8. Number 3. So, in the sermon, we looked at like why I love the church. We talked about Jesus and the Big C Church and the local church. And so this first question is in the Jesus category. It says, how would you respond to a friend who said that Jesus is a good moral teacher, but he's just like all the other religious leaders? Which it's kind of a standard question. All religions are the same, or all religious leaders are the same. So what do you say to that when someone brings that up? Craig, what did you get?
I went kind of down the thought of beginning with, I guess, salvation and the resurrection event, because that is so central to who Jesus is in the Christian faith. And like Paul says, like without the resurrection, it's like, what would our faith even be? And so I was just thinking about what Jesus accomplished through his death and resurrection is our salvation, and also what is to come with the new heavens and the new earth, and what is expected because of his resurrection. And when you look at other religions, they don't necessarily have not all of them have like a salvation that they're working towards, really, but like I just jotted down like the basic idea. So like Hinduism, there's this goal of knowledge that you're gonna increase in, get to some state of knowledge that's like, I have arrived.
Like
so,
nirvana.
Yes, so you're working towards something. In Buddhism, it's enlightenment, same sort of idea. You're working towards...
Oh, wait, that's nirvana.
Yeah.
I think in Buddhism it is.
I can't remember. I was looking at the names. I couldn't
Am I
remember.
right? Oh, I think
But-
Hinduism is just reincarnation.
Buddhism is the reincarnation. So that's, you're working towards like earning a reincarnation of like some status, basically. And then Islam is the idea that the salvation or like paradise is something that you earn by keeping the 5 pillars. So if you do those things well, and that's it's like a works-based sort of thing. And all of that is just juxtaposed against Jesus, because we are sinful and we feel the effects of a broken world, and Jesus, being fully God, fully man, lived the perfect life, had the perfect sacrifice, to where we don't have to pray these certain times a day, read these certain things in order to earn our paradise, our end goal in eternity. There's not a level up of knowledge that needs to happen. This progress of sanctification, like, we're working to be like Jesus until we reach the end. But when it comes down to the end in the judgment day, God sees us through the sacrifice of Christ, through his love and humbling himself. And so to me, like, that's like such a contrast. And what makes Jesus so unique is that he was willing to come down and dwell among us and be human and be that perfect sacrifice. Just the ultimate act of love. So
Yeah, I focused on kind of the same thing, but like every other religion you look at, you have to do something to earn your salvation. You said earn, that was the key thing, because that's what stood out to me, is that this is the only one where we can't earn it because Jesus paid the price. And so no matter how much you pray or travel to the Holy Land or whatever, you can't earn it. And even the idea of, like you said, your life is supposed to get, in knowledge or whatever, grow. You'll have people who, have lived a sinful life and, maybe in prison or whatever, and then still accept Jesus and then still get the same reward that we would get having worked in churches. And it's this grace, I think, is the big word, that it's nothing that we could have done for ourselves, and Christianity is the only one that will offer that, and that's through Jesus. Jesus paid the price. It wasn't because of what we did, but because of what he did for us. Also, when you look at, he was the only one to conquer death. Like, you'll have religions that believe in a God, and then you have religions that believe in a prophet or whatever, but those people are dead, and and he was the only one that was fully God and fully human. He was the only one that conquered death to give us away. And so so when you say, like, oh, they're all the same, it doesn't even, I don't know how I'm going to word this, but like, it's just like, look, if there was someone who's Muslim here, and then you had someone saying all religions are the same, we both would be like, nope, no. Like, the Muslim would also agree these ain't the same. It's I think it's very lazy to just say, like, all religions, all spiritual leaders. I'm like, dude, it is not at all, and so, our religion is the only one where the Savior's conquered death. It's the only one where we can't earn our salvation. Now, it will change our lives, and we will begin to live more like Jesus, like you said, with sanctification. And then, I don't know if this is the only one that's unique, that's different, but I did put, it's a little bit of the sermon too, but like how transformational his teachings were compared to any other religion. They'll be like, they all teach the same, love people and whatever, and yet it's in Christianity that we see these how much those teachings affected the world. Like when it came to the rights of women, the human rights, the humanitarian aid about helping the poor and prisoner and orphan and the lame. And I'm biased. I'm probably biased, but the number of stories that you hear about people who aren't Christian, who are trying to disprove Christianity, like actively trying to do that, and then become Christian. Now, I get that's circumstantial. I get it. However, I don't see that or hear about that with other religions. I was trying really hard to disprove it. I'm sure it may have happened, but man, you just see the power of Christ's teaching compelling people, and even for people who don't love Jesus, or they don't like Christians. I think what's the Gandhi quote where it's like, I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christianity. There's something about the teachings of Jesus that resonate with people even who don't follow. And so those are more circumstantial, but the main one being that we can't earn our salvation, that Jesus did that for us, is what I kind of focus on. But what about you, Lance?
Yeah, you guys nailed it, I think. I mean, Christianity is not a what religion, it's a who religion. It's not what we can do or how much we can do, but it's who we trust in and who we believe in, and of course being Jesus. And I love what you guys have said. I think it was, I read a quote earlier this week from the founder of Campus Crusade, who kind of along your lines, Zach, said, I just can't find anybody who has really gone to, and I'm sure there are, but he's,
right.
He's saying, I don't know anybody who's really studied Scripture, who studied the Bible, who studied Christianity, and walked away, just discounting it, saying, no, it's not real, not true, and Jesus makes that difference, right? And so, this is. You guys have heard this before, and I think it's mostly attributed to C.S. Lewis, although I'm not sure he used these exact words. It comes from Mere Christianity, where he writes about this, and the liar, lunatic, or Lord thing. You have to choose. Is Jesus is either a liar. If you trust the Gospels, he's either a liar because he claims to be God, and some people will work really hard to say that Jesus never claimed to be God. But you get to places like John chapter 10, and starting in about verse 22, he says, at the time of the Feast of Dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, how long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me, but you do not believe because you are not part of my flock. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them eternal life, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one. And then right after Jesus says that, they, verse 31, the Jews picked up stones to stone him, right? Because you're blaspheming, you're claiming to be God, and so Jesus. Not over and over. I mean, there's also parts of the Gospels where he, heals someone and don't tell anybody about this, right? And go, messianic secret we studied in Bible college, right? And so there's, places in the Gospels where Jesus says, keep this quiet. But man, there are several places where he is pretty upfront about who he says he is. So you have to decide, is he a liar? Is he just kidding around about it, or claiming to be somebody he's not, or he's crazy? There's certainly been folks throughout history who claim to be more than they are because mental disorder, right? So you have to decide, is he a lunatic, is he crazy, or is he really Lord? One of my favorite chapters in the Gospels is Mark chapter 5, and it's right around Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5 is that story about Jesus healing the man possessed by lots of demons, right? And we're legion, that whole thing, and I love that story. But right before that, at the end of chapter 4 in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus calms the storm, right? And he's master over nature. He's Lord over nature. And then he steps foot on the ground, and this guy comes running at him, and he casts the demons out of this possessed man. He's master. He's Lord over the spiritual realm. And then it's at the end of Mark chapter 5 where he goes and he heals a woman first, and then he goes into the house of a woman and raises her daughter from the dead. Jesus is master. He's Lord over life and death, and ultimately, and ultimately he exhibits that on the cross, right? He's executed on the cross by experts, executioners. He dies on the cross. He's buried in a tomb, and he raises on the third day. He's Lord over eternity,
right?
And so. I mean, the heart of this question, I think, is Jesus just a moral teacher? Because of course he he not only taught and said, these gave us words to follow, but he set an example for us to follow. He lived it perfectly. Nobody else has done that perfectly, right? We all have folks. You did a great job, Zach, on Sunday of saying, man, there's people that I look up to, that have set this example for me. They treated me like Jesus would treat me, and that's made a difference in my life. We all have those folks, and we also have folks who have done that and have let us down at one time or another, right? And Jesus was perfect. He set this perfect example for us to follow, and so he's a great moral teacher, right? If there's anyone first of all, nobody else that we've talked about, whoever it is you want to list, right? Gandhi or whatever. Those folks are sinners. They've done or said something. Mother Teresa. Do you know how many people you can find online who hate Mother Teresa? It's sort of crazy to think about, right? No, she didn't. There's just list of grievances against Mother Teresa. So I hate to see the list of grievances that have been compiled because of this opening question against me. If there's people that are upset,
I'm sorry,
right? I mean, I've let people down.
Sure,
but Jesus is perfect. He's the perfect moral teacher because of his example. But he's so much more than that. He's Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's one other thing I was going to say, but going back, like if he was just a moral teacher, that's fine. But if it wasn't for the resurrection, then all he is a moral teacher. Even if he'd done miracles, like that's not going to save you. And so the one verse I had was in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 13. But it says, if there is no resurrection, then not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. And so it all hinges on him sealing the deal. If he claims to be God, that's one thing, but then when he proves it through the resurrection, that's what seals it. And so, and we have this hope that we will live beyond death as well. And so, it all comes down to that. The only one to ever raise from the dead. Really, really good question. And I feel like we just barely scratched the surface on that too. There's other things you could say. But moving on, number 8, we in the sermon, we talked about Jesus and the Big C Church, and then that third point was the local church, specifically Wallula. And so in this one, I said, what are some obvious ways someone can serve at Wallula, and what are some not so obvious ways? So like you said, I talked about people in the church that I had growing up were examples to me, both VBS and youth group and just families. And so I wanted to highlight some of those, I guess, or have people think about that, because there's we're described as the body, and we have these different strengths and abilities. And so we also have ministries that reflect those strengths and abilities, depending on where you would like to serve. And so what are some of the things that you guys would want to highlight about the things that, maybe obvious to serve at Wallula, but then some not so obvious ways? I don't know if we want to do a 2-part question or like answer one or the other, but I'll let you guys just go. Craig, I'll start with you again.
I thought about Sunday morning a little bit, and because I think there's obvious ones like the worship team, because that's right in front of people,
right?
And people are watching people serve as we lead songs. Greeters, you see them as you walk in.
Yeah,
that's a good one. And I think other things too, even like we talk about Shelter of Hope and Third Thursdays quite a bit, and those are opportunities to serve. And so those feel to me like they're a little more obvious, but I think the less obvious ones, you think of like behind the scenes type stuff, and especially in my realm, the sound booth kind of is that like behind the scenes. So there's people that run lights and sound and the live stream, and like all of those things, you don't notice them unless something goes wrong,
and then my head starts to turn.
But all of those, I mean, they're so crucial to helping people worship on Sunday morning, to have the lyrics up there, the live stream, someone's running that, the whole service, and making sure that it's going as planned. And so we need people to do those things. And even I'm going to give a shout out to Mark Gorglione. He's been helping with running the slides for, I guess, a while now. And one day he just said, hey, do you, or Lance, or whoever makes these sermon slides, do you want someone to do that? Because I would love to. And that was something like we never talked about.
That wasn't even a position that we were trying to fill. Yeah.
Like Lance never thought or expressed, I want someone else to do this. Let's go find someone. And I never talked to him about it or anything. He just said, well, I love just getting on PowerPoint and putting things together.
That's a unique talent.
Yeah.
A unique skill.
And so I just said, hey, Lance, Mark wants to do this. And so he's been doing that, I mean, probably longer than I
So you guys just send him the sermon points ahead of time?
Yeah.
And he makes them on the slides?
Yeah.
And
so, like, that is even more behind the scenes than, like, an actual Sunday morning, like, serving during service. But I just think that's such a cool example because he saw something that he thought, well, this could be a need, and it could be something that I enjoy, and he just asked. And then now it's just, a weekly rhythm for him to...
And really does help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it saves a little bit of time for us, so it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of said the same thing. Like the obvious ones, I'm just like, well, the things you see, so I said, I did not have the tech as background. I thought that was one of the more obvious ones because you walk by it. And, but I had the greeters, it's the first thing you see when you come in. Helping out with nursery. We have a lot of people do that. Or with students or kids ministry. You probably don't see it as much, but you think about that when you're like, oh, these are obvious places to serve. But then some of the not so obvious ways, I was thinking things people probably don't think about, like communion prep. Someone prepares that communion, someone sets that out between both services. Like we have people who are signed up to help, when Lance says, make sure you take one of those communication cards. Well, in between services, someone is setting that out. Someone is resetting out the communion. Someone is cleaning up that communion. And so that's all behind the scenes. I think about the fellowship ministry where whenever we have an event like the bonfire or the prayer, praise, and pie, there's teams involved in making sure that's set up. And then things that I would not want to have anything to do with, but we handle money here, so we have a finance ministry, and that is, I'm thankful that there are people who are good at that. But also the things you don't notice that it looks really good out in front of Wallula because we have a garden ministry, people who donate their time and their skills, who love gardening and pruning and all that stuff, and then also. One I'm secretly jealous of, but we have a lawn mowing ministry. We got like these two really sweet 0-turn mowers, and so there's crews that sign up to do that, a group's crews, and I think Sherry's even does that, and Katie Baker is like, it's just kind of fun because it takes a few hours on a 0-turn. Maintenance ministry, the missions ministry, and then also like. It's funny because you had it as an obvious one, I had a not so obvious one, but the third Thursday in Shelter of Hope, but. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes, and there's more. I
thought of another one as we're talking.
What's that?
But April Patswold.
Oh yeah,
the online hosting, which
hosting.
is a ministry we need to grow.
Right.
We've continually talked about that, but she shows up every week to do that, and it's a constant name and face on the chat live stream.
Yeah. Right. And I like how in both the ones that you see. On Sunday mornings and the ones behind the scenes, like there's so many different kind, like some working with your hands, maintenance or the gardening or lawn mowing or whatever, and then some that are, the finance versus just something simple like communion prep. Something I've been really thankful for is that I get here early on Sunday mornings, and so my kids are just like bored, and so it started about a year and a half ago. Graham just came up and said, "Hey, Maureen Lee said, asked if I would help with setting out the cookies and the donuts, and he really liked that. And so now he is literally on that team to where if she's gone, she'll say, "Hey, can you make sure Graham is, let him know I'm going to be gone." And so now, and Selah started to do that too. Yeah. And it's something super simple, and they love doing, because they get to be a part of that. Yeah. And so there's just so many different ways for people to serve that we need. Yeah. And so, yeah.
You guys, good job.
Okay.
Yeah. I think obvious ways, I just brought with me the list of ministry teams, right?
Okay.
And, and so I hope that these are obvious ways that people can serve. And so when I think of obvious ways, I think, well, we have these ministry teams, and you guys mentioned a ton of them tonight. First one on the list here is finance team, and we have a finance team meeting. We're finalizing the budget, putting that together for 2024, and we do need folks to do that. I mean, there are terrible stories. I've got a friend who left one church, went to another church in Colorado, went to a large church in Colorado, walked in. I'm not sure if he knew this before he was hired or not, but he walked in and he's dealing with a former employee who embezzled, $250,000 from the church, right? And so, we need folks who are diligent and that exercising their giftedness to ensure that bad things don't happen, right? And so that's a good thing. And the missions team does a great job. We've got all the worship stuff, the online worship, and the tech team, and whether you see them or you don't see them, or you only see them like an offensive lineman when they hold, when the slide doesn't progress on time, or a microphone doesn't turn on, or whatever.
Still thankful that they're doing it.
They're there, right? And then serving, and we don't notice those things most of the time, because most of the time they don't happen, right? They're making that go. The worship band, of course, there's opportunity to serve on worship band, and we need folks gifted to play instruments and sing and do all those things to step up. The first impressions area with decoration. I know you guys hauled some Christmas decorations out of storage today for folks getting ready to decorate and do that. Greeter teams and hospitality with that you talked about with the treats and the coffee and all of that stuff that we sometimes take for granted because it's just there. And communion preparation, and maybe this is kind of a new team that we're putting together, and so it might not be obvious, but operations, you make sure there are the right number of chairs in the sanctuary, and that there are the things we need, the communication cards, the welcome home cards, and the invitations, and 2 services, those have to go out between services, and so Keith and Stacy Kohler do that every week. And I know they can use folks to help them from time to time, for sure. The fellowship team, we just had a great event here, the Prayer, Praise, and Pie Plus event, kind of a new twist on that, and it was a good evening of worship and prayer and then dessert, right? And side dishes and all of that. So it was a fun evening, put that stuff together. Care team who help us just with pastoral care and meeting needs of folks who maybe are hurting a little bit or celebrating, and just we want to celebrate with them, and so they do things like provide meals for folks and that sort of thing, and so they're going to have a caroling event just to bring a little holiday cheer to folks that maybe don't get out as much, or just to provide a little holiday cheer, so that'll be good stuff. Small groups, I hope we're a part of, and man, there's a long list, right? Students and kids and preschool ministry, and social media is an area we need to grow and expand.
I didn't even think about that one.
And this is maybe a not so obvious way that. You don't have to be in charge of our social media to share our social media stuff, to say, hey, this Christmas Eve service is coming up, and to share that on your own, whatever, social media outlet. That'd be a good thing. And you mentioned them, the maintenance and the lawn mowing and the garden, Shelter of Hope, and all these things. And I hope those are obvious ways to serve. And it just depends who you talk to, I suppose. And I was thinking about what are some not so obvious ways to serve. And and I hope this isn't a cop out. I'm not trying to cop out, but I would love to know from folks listening to this podcast what they think are the not, these are the areas of certain, maybe you could help out here. Maybe you could do something here, because, I feel like, we're trying to do our best.
Covering all the, covering everything.
But
kind of like with Mark, he found something.
I'm sure we're missing something. Right.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I had a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and they asked, what does Pastor Appreciation Month look like at your church? And he said, do you guys do a good job at Pastor Appreciation Month? And I'm like, well, I just feel like every month is Pastor Appreciation Month, right? And we don't make a big deal of it. Is what I said. I said we don't make a big deal of it here at Wallula. And I said, I'm sure that's my fault because I don't make a big deal of it.
We don't advertise. It's our month now.
Yeah.
We'll be waiting.
Yeah.
It's like I don't on my birthday walk around telling everyone
it's my birthday month.
Right.
Come on now.
Right. And it's just one of those things in our world now. There's everybody has a day, right? Like I miss all the time. Again, going to social media. Do you ever go to social media and they're like, then you're inundated with hundreds or of pictures of it's National Daughters Day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh crap, I thought every day was National Daughters Day, right? I didn't know you were. But anyway, everybody has a day, and we don't all need a day.
Right.
So, but long story. This is a preacher's long-winded way to get to. If somebody ever asked me, what would you really like for Pastor's Appreciation? I think if I'm thinking straight, right? If I'm on my game, if I'm being a little bit smart that day, I would say, you need to ask Sherry ask Sherry what you can do for her, right? And I think sometimes pastors' wives get sort of overlooked in some of this stuff, and maybe go out of your way to love on a pastor's wife wherever you're at would be a good thing, because we do sometimes drag them into things that whether they signed up for it or not, right? And so maybe that's a hidden way, but that's really it's like in youth ministry we always talked about you ought to go into the cafeteria and look for the kid who's sitting alone at the table, right? And that's true for the rest of your life. If you go in on a Sunday morning and look for the person sitting alone in the sanctuary and just go up and greet them,
right?
And have a conversation with them. Just say, "Man, I'm glad you're here. Can I get you a cup of coffee? Can I, whatever." Then, man, what a difference that might make. You don't have to irritate them. You don't have to stay a long time. Maybe they want to take advantage of that time to be alone. That's okay too. But man, just acknowledging they're there. Yeah. And so find that kid still that's sitting alone in the cafeteria, and reach out to them. What an amazing way to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to serve.
And you just never know. Church. Like you just never know what little thing you do. Like if someone mentioned it to you later on, you'd be like, I don't even remember doing that. But to them, it was such a huge deal.
Right.
And so,
well, in your message, Zach, you said, oh man, I can't believe I hope I'm not spilling too many secrets.
Okay.
But you said in staff meeting, I got emotional when I mentioned these names.
It caught me off. Yeah, I wasn't.
I didn't
think put
it
on there.
would.
I'm going to start crying.
Right. I didn't think it would.
Yeah, it caught me off guard.
And man, and you're right. You said, well, I just wrote these things out, and nothing was. There was no
super emotional. It was very simple acts that people
They didn't save you on the side of the road, or bring you back to life or anything, CPR or whatever. It was just I'm going to share a dinner with this guy, and those were powerful stories, not because they kind of celebrated those individuals, but because we all have those individuals in our lives, right? And you're going through a time when that that dinner invitation means more than it normally would.
Yeah.
And you just don't know when somebody is going through one of those times.
Right.
And that simple invitation might make a big difference, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. That conversation, man, those kinds of things. So just, I don't know how to verbalize that other than be a neighbor, right? Don't live behind closed doors all the time. Those sorts of things, and just love one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also when we talk about, some people couldn't make it because of the snow and whatnot, and so we're so thankful to have the online ministry to watch it. But none of that would have happened if people just stuck with doing online. Like, it's a good resource to have, but ultimately it's in being together, and sharing life together. And so it's just such a huge thing to
Sure.
See one another every week and do life together.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to Lance going back up again, starting our Christmas series.
Christmas is coming.
Thank you. I was like, there's a C. I was trying to do it from memory when I did announcements. I was like, continuing Christmas.
Isaiah,
All right.
It's going to be interesting.
Okay, very cool.
Stuff.
Well, we look forward to it, and we look forward to talking again next week.
Yep.